11th, 2024 Planning Commission hearing. I'd like to call the hearing to order at 1:01 PM. Ms. Johnson, can we have a roll call vote?
Thank you, Chair Bauke. I'll take roll call. Chair Bauke.
Here.
Vice Chair Wardlow is absent. Commissioner Barnwell.
Here.
Commissioner Boss is absent. Commissioner DeLucia.
Here.
Commissioner Lodge is absent. Commissioner Wiscombe.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay. Our first section is preliminary matters. First would be requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or additions of ex-agenda item. Ms. Arcanega, do we have any of those?
Chair Bauke, we do not.
Okay. Announcements and appeals, do we have any of those?
Chair Bauke, we do not.
Okay. So moving on, we have next the review, consideration, and actions of the following draft Planning Commission minutes and resolutions. We have the June 6th and June 13th Commission minutes. We also have the resolution number 00924 for 1269 Fernero Road. Do we have any discussion on that item? And I believe council wanted to talk about it before we, or I'm not sure. That's,
No, but before the commission votes on it, we should see if there's any public comment on the item.
okay. So is there any comments on the minutes or the resolution by my fellow commissioners? Seeing none, could I have a motion?
I'll move the minutes and the resolution.
Is it
Okay.
public comment on
Oh,
the?
public comment.
Okay.
I'll hold off.
Do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Chair Bauke. At this time, I haven't received any speaker slips. If you do wish to speak in person, you can fill out a speaker slip at the back of the room. I'm not seeing any movement. We also do not have any virtual participants at this time, but we did receive written correspondence from Derek Booth, which was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Bauke.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Did you have something to say on this? Nope.
And
No,
I
Chair
actually
Bauke.
I did see the correspondence. I just want to go on the record in saying that.
Okay. So motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote?
Thank you, Chair Bauke. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner DeLucia.
Yes.
Commissioner Barnwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe.
Yes.
Chair Bauke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving on to public comments on items not on the agenda. Do we have anybody to speak slips in or virtual?
Thank you, Chair Bauke. At this time, I don't have any speaker slips, and we do not have any virtual participants, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Bauke.
Okay, so the next item was on the agenda was continued, which is 2339 Edgewater Way was continued to August 15th, so that we will not be hearing today. So we're going to move on to our new item, which is 504 State Street. And the purpose of this Planning Commission hearing is to consider the conditional use permit to allow the sale of alcohol beverages for off-site consumption, a type 20 license at this location, and confirmation of the environmental analyst's determination that the project is exempt from further environmental review. Before we get started, do any of the commissioners have any ex parte communication that they need to disclose at this time on this item? Seeing none, we will move to the staff presentation. We have today Assistant Planner Holly Garson for the staff presentation. Ms. Garson, the floor is yours. You can begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. As you've stated, I'm Holly Garson, Assistant Planner with the City's Planning and Zoning Division. I'll be giving the staff presentation today, but just wanted to start off by thanking you all for attending the site visit on Tuesday, and thanks for hearing this item today. So the project site is located at 504 State Street. It's near the corner of State Street and East Haley Street, and it involves a new Type 20 license for Lily's Donuts and Pops. The Type 20 allows Lily's to sell wine and beer selections for off-site consumption only under the Alcohol Beverage Control Act. Lily's is a family-friendly craft dessert shop, including a commercial kitchen that sells food such as donuts and popsicles and curated beverages such as coffee and local beer and wine pairings to go. The project does not include indoor or outdoor seating. Exterior changes are limited to new signage, which is currently in place. And you can see here on this screen, this is the location, 504 State Street. It's an older storefront. It was once Cold Stone Creamery. Planning Commission's review of the project today is for a conditional use permit. And just as a reminder, the California Department of Alcohol Beverage Control, or ABC, is responsible for regulating all retail alcohol sales within California. Off-site consumption licenses are issued for businesses that sell alcohol for consumption off the premises, while on-site consumption licenses are issued for businesses that sell alcohol for consumption on the premises, such as bars and restaurants. While the ABC does maintain the authority over licensing, cities can regulate secondary aspects of alcohol beverage sales through its land use powers, such as a conditional use permit. The purpose of something like a conditional use permit is to address related nuisance impacts to the surrounding areas from the sale of the off-site consumption for alcohol. On this screen, here's an aerial view of the project site. It's highlighted in yellow, the approximate location for Lily's, 504 State. There's a red arrow pointing to that location. Notable also is Fusion Academy, located adjacent to the site at 510 State Street, and then down the block at 410 State Street, Reality Church of Santa Barbara religious facility. That's approximately 400 feet away from the project site. The findings for a conditional use permit speak to the desirability of the use regarding the public's general welfare and its compatibility with the general plan. A permit may only be granted for alcohol beverage retail establishments that are located, developed, and operated in compliance with performance and development standards that are applicable to the operation, unless a variation is approved by the Planning Commission and is based on unreasonable hardship and subject to findings that the use will not have a significant adverse effect on the crime rate or other related nuisance activities. So the ordinance contains standards for new and non-transferred licenses, such as restricting establishments to sites with low to average crime rate and distance a minimum of 500 feet away from uses such as the schools or religious facilities. As previously stated, the Planning Commission does have the discretion to grant a variation to these standards as you deem appropriate. The applicant is requesting a variation to the distant requirement specifically because the project site is located next to Fusion Academy, as you saw on the aerial. That's a private junior high school. And the project site is located approximately 400 feet from the Reality Church Santa Barbara, the religious facility. But Lily's brand is focused on creating and providing a local nostalgic journey through the sale of their handcrafted to-go foods and beverages. The request is to allow only the of-age adult guests to be able to pair those fresh-made donuts and popsicles with a selection of coffee and local curated beer and wine. The applicant considers this to be an important component of the future of their business, and therefore it is to avoid an unreasonable hardship. And staff was supportive of this requested variation in this case. And based on the feedback from the police department, the site shows a low to average crime rate, and there is not an anticipated concern relative to the license for alcohol sales. Additionally, the applicant has communicated with Fusion Academy, and their head of school did provide a support letter, so you can see that as Exhibit C as part of the staff report. And the last point on this slide, the sale, distribution, and display of alcohol beverages is limited in terms of type and size of containers. So, for example, those miniature single-serve airline-style containers are not permissible, and the project does propose to comply with all the size and type standards. And it should also be noted that originally they were proposing a high-end champagne vending machine and non-compliant wine and beer container sizes, but that has been removed, so there are no other additional variations being requested today. Alcohol cannot be displayed within 5 feet from an entrance on a checkout counter or on a display case located adjacent to a checkout counter. And as demonstrated on the floor plan on the screen, here highlighted in yellow, there will be a refrigerator for wine and beer. This is located behind the checkout counter, and it's only accessible by trained store employees, which is permissible. So the project will comply with all other remaining standards related to lighting, noise, operational criteria to address any potential nuisances. The police department did review calls for service for the 500 block of State Street. This was specific to January 1, 2020 through March 5th, 2024. So 4 years and 2 months time period. And there were actually 1,860 calls, and only 10 calls specifically occurred at 504 State Street. However, none of the calls specifically noted cause of public drunkenness, the illegal sale or use of narcotics, drug or alcohol, or even alcohol beverage sales to minors. So the police department staff did not note any concerns related to alcohol specifically being at the 504 location. A public convenience and necessity letter, or PCN, was issued by the Santa Barbara Police Department on January 31st, 2024, and that is associated with this proposed liquor license. They determined the business operation will satisfy the public convenience and necessity, and you can see that PCN letter issued by the police department as part of the staff report. In terms of upkeep and operating characteristics, Lily's is a proposed food and beverage sales use, which is an allowed use in the zone, and it is a consistent development within the immediate vicinity. The grab-and-go concept is anticipated to be a beneficial convenience to the public. The project site is in the MC Manufacturing Commercial Zone and has a general plan land use designation of commercial high-density residential. The site is part of the State Street downtown corridor and the lower State Street neighborhood of the general plan. The land use element of the general plan, specifically policy LG4, encourages a mix of land uses. So Lily's is consistent with this policy as it provides a food and beverage business in the lower State Street neighborhood. Policy LG15 notes that neighborhoods shall be encouraged to preserve and enhance the sense of place. Neighborhoods serving commercial uses are encouraged, and the project is consistent with this policy because in addition to the option to buy beer and wine, Lily's plans to sell the grab-and-go coffee, which is listed as a desired use that would be a benefit to the public. Just a few other general plan consistencies noted on the screen. The project manages commercial growth. Lily's is replacing an empty storefront, as I mentioned, on State Street, and what was previously an existing food establishment. The project does not include additions to the existing commercial building or tenant space to facilitate the sale of the beer and wine component. Lily's focuses on a buy local option for patrons that want to purchase specialty desserts to pair with their local beer and wine options. The project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines. Section 15301 applies for existing facilities, which allows for operation, permitting, licensing, or minor alterations of existing private structures involving negligible or no expansion of former use, which Lily's qualifies for. So staff recommends today to the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit subject to the findings and conditions of approval outlined in that staff report dated July 3rd, 2024, and also confirm the environmental analyst determination of exemption outlined in the staff report. And I'm here for questions if needed. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gerson. Next will be the applicant. We'd like to hear from you. If you have 15 minutes. I hope you don't need all 15 minutes, but you have 15 minutes to make a presentation. State your name for the record, and you can begin.
All right. My name's Kamran Tarkashian, and thank you again. Thanks for walking through the property the other day, and thanks for listening to us for 15 or less. Just kind of want to tell a little story, basically, of how we got here and what we're really trying to accomplish. I grew up, born in the 70s, which you kind of see some of the motif here follows that. But I grew up one of 4 kids, and we got donuts every weekend, and it was special. And I see to my kids too. There's nothing that lights you up like donuts, especially when you're a kid. I mean, you know, they love mac and cheese, they love pizza, but nothing compares. And that was a tradition I carried forward today. Every Saturday, those kids, whether they're listening to their mom and I or not, they get their donuts. They know it. They get away with anything. And it's been a great tradition. It's exciting, and I think there's those moments that I appreciate looking back of them staring in the glass case, deciding between, you know, my daughter deciding between pink frosting or whatever else. And it's been a really fun moment, and they take it back home, still in their pajamas, watching Saturday morning cartoons and off and running. I mean, I ate them at the beach. I was going to say I spent pretty much every summer until high school not too far from here in my parents' beach house and enjoyed every second of it. So I know this area pretty well. And that donut store is actually still around, which is kind of neat. So, but, you know, fast forward, Omar, who you know, my friend since 7th grade, by the way, all the way through junior high, high school, and college. We were talking, 3 years ago and saying, you know, this town, you know, we want to do something a little bit different. We've seen, you know, through Instagram and different places, there's these kind of elevated donuts, right? An elevated experience, elevated flavors, people taking some risks with what they're putting out there. And, you know, we should do the same. And it's kind of neat. You know, over the last 3 years, we've seen a lot of other places pop up locally, which is pretty cool. There's almost a culture started that we could hopefully be a part of. But we definitely want to do it different and maybe do it in our, you know, what we think do it better. So we saw other places in other states matching craft beers, specific craft beers that were chosen to match with that really unique flavor of donut, right? Or champagne, or even like a nice crisp Chardonnay. And thinking through that, I'm lucky enough to have contact with a master som, one of only about 210 in the world. And he helped us to really curate what we're trying to do here. And he's in the Psalm movies, if you watch those. I think we all like wine. So, and anyway, so you know, this is what we're thinking. It's wine country. We really want to keep it local and keep it part of, you know, obviously there's a ton of breweries in the local area as well. And so he put it all together. And of course, rightfully so, we tested it out, right? Does this really work? And you know, in the comfort of my house and Gary's house. And yes, we have proof of concept. So we're pretty proud of that. And so that's what we're trying to do. And I think if we've had a great meal in our past with a great bottle of wine that really went together, that's a memorable experience. You know, that wine that we had at, you know, my wife's 40th birthday or whatever other special occasion, remember it. And I kind of want that for our experience, for our little shop here, because this is something that, again, whoever comes in, whether they're locals or they're tourists passing through, want them to have that memory and enjoyment of grabbing this, having that unique taste of that donut, that unique pairing with it for mom and dad, and enjoy it in the comfort of their home and move forward. We definitely want to focus local. We have a ton of amazing wineries, you know, in the local area, a ton of amazing breweries, and also our coffee program. We interviewed a ton, and we chose someone out of Ojai that is exceptional. So again, we're trying to keep it here and really represent this area in a unique and different way. There's a ton of donuts out there. You can get them at the grocery store. So why would you go to this other place or this other place or this other place? And we want to be able to tell that story as to why. So fast forward, though, even further now. We call it Lily's. Lily is my 9-year-old little princess, most of the time princess, usually.
Just wait.
Yeah, just wait. Yeah, exactly. Everyone warns me about that. I have 2 girls, actually, and a boy. But, yeah, so I'm going to go through it twice with them. But named it after her. And, again, speaking to that enjoyment that she has that I get to see on her face every time she gets usually pink frosting on her donut. So but as I'm going to hand it over to Omar in a second, but Omar and I were talking about this, and he's a serial restaurateur, done a great job, and I said, I'll let him tell the story too, but I said, all right, we got to go talk to my cousin Gary, who will get up here in a sec. Gary more or less belongs on the Mount Rushmore of restaurateurs. He's done so many great things, and I'll let him talk through his resume and everything else in a sec. But Omar, do you want?
Sure. I think important for us to kind of convey to you guys is that we put a lot of time and energy into the concept, and we think it's pretty well thought through. It's not just a random kind of fly-by-night thing that we decided to open on a whim. We curated our brand look and the style guide and a lot of energy into how this comes across to the public. As a restaurateur, especially with a strong background in beer and wine, I thought the connection between those things locally is important, and so we're going to tie in our ingredients heavily to farmers market, seasonal options. There's going to be a constant rotating menu of our donuts and popsicles that we're making fresh in-house daily throughout the day. But again, with that wine component, it's not the integral focus of the concept. We're not a bar. We're not trying to push alcohol on everyone. When you walk in the space, it's probably the third or fourth thing you're really going to notice. Primarily, we're gearing everything towards children and families and that experience that Conrad and I grew up with going to donut shops as kids. So the first thing you see when you walk in the space is our retail section. We sell cans of coffee, not bags. So it's kind of more touching on like that Folgers Crystals experience we got when we were younger. But the display you see from the street is our donut glass display. We're doing it at kind of a lower height like this so kids are able to have a great visual of it. When you turn the corner from there, it goes right into our popsicles that, again, is a pretty unique visual of colorful fruit and everything. And then it turns the last corner to the cash register and where you'd be paying for your items and the coffee experience. That alcohol component kind of sits behind there. The idea is that if a parent is coming in with their children and they want that experience, it's there for them. And we did a lot of energy into curating what that is. But it's not something we're pushing down your throat. It's a well-rounded trip for everyone. As far as operations go, I'm 23 years into this business. I've been a manager of several liquor licenses along the way for wine bars, a steakhouse in Orange County, several concessions on the beach elsewhere too. And so this is one of my first projects in this area, but it's a community I live in now. I'm a Goleta resident, and it's an area I love, and I just want to see specifically State Street kind of come back to the life it once had. And I think it's going to take a lot of businesses that are built on a foundation that are going to be here for the long run. And I feel like that's what we are. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Okay. As far as compliance goes with the guidelines, we're not selling single serving drinks. We think our guests that come in are not going to be purchasing alcohol to drink out on the street or anything of that nature. It's not a list of product that you're going to want to come in and spend a lot of money on and drink out front. So it's more of a take-home experience, and we paired it if you want it. In terms of interacting with the city, again, we want to pair very heavily with the farmers market and make sure we're supporting all our local farms and vendors. All of our vendors are local in terms of produce and anything else of that nature. Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Gary to touch a little bit on our backgrounds and experience, and having been involved with several different concepts that are safe and family friendly. Gary's kind of the expert on that, so he'll take it over.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you again for your time, and I had notes, but I'm going to try to do it under 15 minutes, so we'll keep our time and fame under that. So unfortunately, I was not born in the 70s, as it may be apparent, but I guess maybe what century. But I've been in the restaurant hospitality industry now for 44 years, starting actually this month. And I've really been blessed with having some great partners and working with concepts. I've worked on probably close to 300 different types of concepts, coast to coast, top to bottom, back and forth. And they range from small little taco shacks to literally converting Home Depots into high volume nightclubs. And we had a different liquor license depending on the states. And I've been on dozens and dozens of liquor license, California to Texas to Florida, Chicago. And each one made different, from packaged good to full-blown nightclub. But one common thread that we had between all of them as an organization was the distinct responsibility that we took with each of the liquor license. So my partners kind of had the fun part of, this is a cool concept. I'm the elephant in the room, so to speak, and that it's why we're here. And we took the approach, and I say we, our partners, our employees, the communities, that a liquor license was given to us as a privilege. We went in multiple public hearings like this in some states, and others, they're relatively easy to get. We created our protocols and our policies in order to train and to educate our staff. We're, sons and daughters, we're fathers and mothers in our organizations. We had employees, and we were citizens within the community. And we took, through events prior, very seriously alcohol and how it is served and how it is dispensed and how it's educated. We partnered with local police departments and fire departments. We leveraged technology, not bleeding edge, but as technology came out, from paper handbooks to IDing to now, scanning ID for fake ID recognition. It was important to have that. It's a legal substance. It is and it is controlled from the standpoint of what you can serve. But we took the approach to educate safe, responsible serving of alcohol. We had it at the time when states, believe it or not, didn't even have requirements for employees to be trained, like California now with the RBS program. We still had programs we created to train that. Fast forwarding through my career and working with this, again, it was a privilege, and we took that privilege and still take it seriously. In my faux retirement years, I started becoming an expert witness, and I've been doing that now for the last couple of years, specifically in the restaurant hospitality industry. I've had 40 some odd cases so far during this time, having distinct clients, including the city of Santa Barbara, actually, on a case, a Marriott International, Brinker. And within those, several cases were alcohol-related in training and dispensing, and very good applications of organizations that follow policies and procedures, and examples of others that didn't, that I worked with both plaintiffs and defendants in this case. But it was a continual reminder that responsible training and handling of spirits is incumbent upon the owners, it's incumbent upon the partnership and the employees, as well as the community. It's working together with the community and the outreach programs that cities have to help train and educate on, here's the responsibility, and here are the consequences of not handling that privilege that we're here today asking you to give us within the constraints of the concept. So I've got 1 minute and 53 left. So Chair, we'll hand it back to you at this point.
Okay, thank you, and we'll reserve your time. Okay, so next will be public comment. Do we have any slips or virtual folks with their hands up?
Thank you, Chair Bauke. At this time, I haven't received any speaker slips, and I'm not seeing any movement. We also do not have any virtual participants, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Bauke.
Okay, so we're going to now take it back to the commission, and I will ask my fellow commissioners if they have any questions for the applicant or staff. Commissioner Barnwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am curious about, there's no seating, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, it's all to go.
And what are the hours of operation?
7 a.m. in the morning, we're going to open for donut coffee service, our full menu, typically probably 10 o'clock at night, to be able to capture some of the dessert business for the restaurants that are surrounding us.
Next time, come up to the mic,
I'm
please.
sorry,
Okay,
apologies.
thanks.
And one of you spoke of something I'd never heard of, the pairing of wine and donuts. Is that kind of a
It's not a
thing you're gonna offer?
commonplace that exists outside of what we're trying to do. It is common in restaurants, so having a lot of history in that kind of category, it's not uncommon to have an in-house som at a nicer restaurant, which we do at some of our other locations. And so this is just a curated list while we have our different regular flavors that stay on the menu year-round, and then some of the seasonal ones, we run them through our som contact, who's a master som, and he would say, if I were eating this donut with chocolate, I would pair it with this red wine from this region. So it's more just a suggestive, curated thing that we give the guests in a visual, if they like it, and then if not, they don't need to, obviously. I think coffee is going to be the biggest part of our business in terms of beverage. This is just more of a well-rounded experience we want people to have access to.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Okay, Commissioner DeLucia.
So to follow up on this question, I noticed that the diagram that was put up had beer appearing, not beer and wine, just beer. So what is that about? How come it doesn't have both on there?
Well, good question. That rendering was made at the very beginning of the concept before we had an actual space. And we knew we wanted a beverage refrigerator. So when that it's a hand-drawn rendering from our design team. They didn't update it with beer and wine on there because typically the red wines wouldn't be in the refrigeration case. So that was kind of an early visual, but it's not an exact representation
Okay,
of what we're doing.
so that leads me to the next question. Where will the, what's not refrigerated in the beer and wine, where will that be kept?
On a shelf, probably directly adjacent to that wine refrigerator or beer refrigerator that you would see in our kind of layout space. So exactly right around.
So that'll be visual to,
Correct, yeah, just on a shelf probably.
okay, so it will be visible, okay.
It will be visible, but it's not guest facing. I
Well,
mean,
the guests can
guests will
see
have
it, but they don't
they don't have
have
access to it, but
access
they
to it.
have
Okay,
the
so
visual.
who will be managing the operations? There's three gentlemen here. Who will be actually,
I'll be overseeing it. We'll also have a store lead for front of house, which would be all the sales happening on the front, which would manage the alcohol part of it. And then we'll have a lead for the back of house as well that'll handle the production of
so
the.
who will have the mandatory training, the RBS? Do you have that already?
All staff will be required to, including managers, but anyone with access to sell will be RBS trained, which I believe is a guideline in general to have everyone do that, yeah.
I just want to ask one more question. The purpose of us here right now, obviously, is a variance because there is a Fusion Academy, a school right next door
Yes.
upstairs. So how would you answer the question of why should we give you that variance?
Well, I think our concept in general is friendly for everyone, right? Obviously, we don't intend on selling alcohol to kids, but a lot of their parents do come by as guests, and it's a more well-rounded experience, no different than if you were going to a restaurant and getting a glass of wine with your dinner. I think the one thing working to our advantage is that it's not on-site consumption, so people aren't staying and drinking 10 drinks. They're going to buy one or two that pair with their donuts and take them home with them. And we've, since the curation of that space, since we got our lease, have worked directly with Fusion on coordinating our construction so we're not disturbing any of their school hours and kind of working around that. So we already have a pretty good working relationship with them. But just in spending time in there, there's been a lot of back and forth as they're entering the space, kind of asking us, when are you going to get open? We're excited to have this option downstairs. So we think it'll add a little bit more family-friendly element to that 500 block that doesn't really exist right now outside some of the restaurants.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Any other commissioner? Nope, okay, I have one, it's not, it's sort of a bigger picture question. And you're proposing to establish a new operation on a street in which the State Street Committee, which I represent this body on, is proposing to keep closed. Do you have any reservation in that? Because I've been trying to survey business owners when I have an opportunity about how business owners look at the
You're talking
concept.
about the
State
driving?
Street, yeah, the State Street, whether there's cars or no cars, or what is your particular view on that?
It's a good question. I've been in this city heavily enough to remember when there was plenty of parking on the street and cars were driving down back and forth. I've also lived in other cities that have the main street closed. I think keeping it closed to driving traffic could work if there's a very well curated plan for what's happening outside. If we're consistent with the parklets that we do in their aesthetic, I think that's an important part of it. If we bring guests a reason to spend time on the street, whether that's art or music or different things like farmers markets, that's great too. But if it feels jumbled and confusing, I know just as a resident, there's constantly different messaging we're getting of what the future is for it. And so I think that that's what leaves people kind of in question. I think you go one direction or the other. You either open it and let people park and let people access it, or create a real community experience behind it, and that would work too. So.
Okay, thank you. So I have no further questions. Could I have a motion by my fellow commissioners if they would like to offer one?
Mr. Chair, I'd make the motion to make the findings, the recommended findings, which are on pages 8 through 10 of our staff report, and approve the conditions of approval, which are 4 pages at the end of our staff report. Thank you.
I have some comments first.
No, we need a second first before we.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment if I may.
Yeah, okay.
We didn't go through the agenda process of questions for staff, and I had a couple questions.
Oh, okay.
I'm not ready to make a motion.
So, talk to me about this license. Does this license here permit sales of wine per glass as long as they're sold on the premises?
Chair Balke, through you to the Commissioner Barnwell. Great question, thank you. So this is a type 20 license. It's specific to beer and wine only, and it is for taking the beer and wine off-site. So the wine needs to comply with sizes of 750 milliliters, which is a standard wine bottle size. There is also provisions for the beer, ale, or I suppose it could be malt liquor. That's 32 ounces, or they need to be sold in a pack of 3 or greater. So the project will comply with that, and again, it's to take off the premises.
But the focus of my question was, can you sell either of those alcoholic beverages by the glass and drink them
No.
on site? Okay.
No, thank you.
Does the approval of this in any way
Yeah.
limit in the future their desire to put in seating if they wanted to?
We would probably need, Chair Balke, through you to Commissioner Barnwell, we would need to look at it as that could be potentially a change in use. So we'd look at it from a land use decision of, does this qualify for substantial conformance determination, whether that's a staff level or it needs to come before a discretionary review body. We'd probably need to double check with the police department and the ABC licensing as well, just to see if that has any changes to their conditions of approval and such.
So essentially, if they did want to put in some seats, they can't just do it?
They'd need to go through the permitting process to do so,
Okay.
yeah.
And I presume the same applies to any parklet, because parklets also have this process.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner DeLuccio, I believe you had some questions?
Yeah, and I'll second the motion, but I did want to make some comments before we voted on this. Actually, there is a condition that if you were to put seats in or parklets, I think, are a different process. We can put seats in, et cetera. It's in a condition to become an intensification of use potentially, and it would have to go through a review process. So that's already a condition. My initial concern was, obviously, it's next to a school, Fusion. I mean, typically, anything within 500 square feet, we really, really need to think long and hard about it. However, I envision this as accessory use, not the primary use, the beer and wine sales. So for that reason, I could vote for this. And also, let's face it, all the surrounding businesses on that street, most of them are already selling alcohol. So that puts you in a position where you have a hardship. You know, you want to be successful. We want you to be successful, and potentially there is a hardship. And I think by having the availability of the beer and wine is going to help your business be successful. And also, you did get positive letters from Fusion and from the police department. So for all those reasons, that's why I second the motion.
Okay, Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since we're making comments, I just wanted to say I made the motion. I appreciate the local focus. I think it's very exciting when we have businesses that have the local focus, and yours clearly, that's your intention here. It's a very novel concept. When I first read the staff report, I thought, donuts and beer and wine, wow, this is, is this the new red wine and chocolate, or what, and it might be, who knows? But I appreciate, as we visited the site and your presentation here today, I think I do wish you all the success with your novel concept. And I did want to say, I appreciate your comments with the responsibility to the liquor license. I think that's very important. You clearly have a track record of responsible licenses, and I did appreciate those comments. So thank you very much. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Did you, Megan has a comment or a question?
Thank you, Chair Balke. I just wanted to clarify, a restaurant use is an allowed use in this zone without a conditional use permit, whereas off-site alcohol sales requires a conditional use permit. So just to clarify to the question, if they were to choose either tasting by the glass or a restaurant use of anything eating or drinking on site, that's a restaurant use in our land uses, it's allowed without a conditional use permit, but we would have to confirm that it's in conformance with the conditional use permit you're doing here today. It would, though, be a different in terms of ABC licenses. That's not in our purview, but it would be a different ABC license, so they would have to go look at that. But just wanted to clarify, the reason adjacent restaurants are there without a CUP is that it's not required for on-site.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Barnwell?
Yeah, under the heading of commissioner comments, I agree with my fellow commissioners. I wish you well. And I appreciate the fact that you are approaching this as a serious endeavor because alcohol is involved. But there is a kind of a whimsical component of it, which is the donut. And there's a part of me that it almost wishes that you could serve on site and in the evenings have a pairing of donuts and wine, because while alcohol has a bad name and deserves to have a bad name, there are many, many operations of alcohol that are enjoyed by adults. And I think that would be a really cool thing to go have donuts paired with wine. I'm a father of 5 and a grandfather of 2, and I am in my family known as Donut Dad. So I come with a track record of donuts. And we always do it. And so I wish you well in that regard. I'm going to come down and try your donuts. And thank you very much for this, and I wish you well. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. My comment is very supportive of bringing another business into the 500 block, and I definitely appreciate your comments about State Street and the creation of more activities and bringing people in. I believe that's what the committee at the end of the day will get to, but we have lots of things to do before we get there. So at this point in time, we have a motion on the table. I'd like to call for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair Balke. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner DeLucia?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe?
Yes.
Chair Balke?
Yes,
Motion passes.
and thank you all. All right, moving on, our next item is the administrative agenda, committee and liaison reports. Commissioner Boss is not here, so we're not going to have the staff hearing officer liaison report. Does any of my fellow commissioners have a report for the committees that they are liaisons for? Commissioner Barnwell, I think so.
I have a query, Mr. Chair, regarding, excuse me, we're going to be having a joint meeting with the city council in
That's correct.
2 weeks or something like that.
26.
What are we doing, or are we doing anything as a commission to participate in the setting of the agenda items for that?
The agenda items were pre-selected, and there are 2 items. One is adaptive reuse, and the other is hotels. Those are the 2 items that will be discussed, and I have been working closely with the mayor and the community development director and the city attorney and the city manager to structure the meeting so it could be as efficient as possible. and you will be getting a packet ahead of time with all the discussion items and things to think about ahead of time.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have one report for the State Street Committee. Back on June 26, we had sort of what I would describe as the unveiling of sort of the initial proposal by staff for State Street with a whole bunch of different alternatives. We took a lot of public testimony, a lot of public written comments were provided to the committee, and we took all that in based on time limits. The meeting was continued to July 15th, which is coming up next Monday at 4 o'clock. Public comment has been closed except for written comments. And we will be taking straw polls and votes on particular concepts. So if you have any feedback for me, I'll be more than glad to take your feedback. So just wanted to put that out there for yourselves and members of the public that might be watching. Other than that, I don't have any discussion or subcommittee workshop items to discuss today. So I'm going to call for adjournment at 1:47 p.m. And that concludes our July 11th, 2024 Planning Commission hearing. Our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for next Thursday, July 18th. Hope you all have a good day. Thank you.